Wow, what an opening. Love what we did this week. We're going to just go ahead and roll with it. Show must go on, Mr. Bunzel. How you doing, sir?
Hey, Peter, how are you?
Well, you like our new opening?
That was quite an opening. I mean,
I hope you had your seatbelt on. It's National Seatbelt Day.
I had no idea, but I think about these openings, and I think about the Saturday Night Live cold openings, as they call it,
infamous,
that have become very trendy. So I guess this is our cold opening.
Well, there's this term in Japanese, wabi-sabi, where it is instead of having something so perfect, you have a little nick in it to make it even seem more perfect. Like an appreciation of the kind of the worn-in look. You know, those worn-in jeans you get from J. Crew, Mark.
That's right. The ones with the cuts already in them.
Amen. Hi, Landons.
Hi.
Hello.
Good evening. How's it going?
Good.
Good. Well, for all those at home, this is your co-host Peter Schrappen of Seattle Boat Show Live. This is episode 31. We're coming at you from not just in Seattle, Washington, at the headquarters of Northwest Marine Trade Association, where I work, but also we're coming to you at Anacortes, Washington. That's for Mark Bunzel, my other co-host, and the Landons. Hey, good evening to you all three.
Yeah.
We got a big show planned, eh, Mark?
Yeah, we do. We got Karl Krueger, who will be on in a little bit after we get through some of the announcements. And this is going to be exciting. This guy's absolutely nuts because he elected to do the race to Alaska on a paddleboard, 2-week paddling from Port Townsend and Victoria all the way to Ketchikan, Alaska. And I've done that on my boat, and I just can't imagine what it must be like to do it on a paddleboard. So his stories are going to be great, and we'll find out.
And I was going to add to that we've done it several times, but sitting down on a pilot house, I can't imagine doing that standing up on the paddleboard.
Yeah, I was telling my 10-year-old and 12-year-old about our guest tonight, and they looked at me and said, "Why?" when I told them the subject matter. So
well, we'll ask Karl that when he comes on. That's a real good question. Why? And it's probably the answer is probably because it was there.
Yeah,
so,
I get that sense. But God, what a crazy week of weather. We've gotten over 7 inches of rain, which is 20% of the I don't know. Did I see that right? 20% of the annual precipitation is already under our belts.
Well, but not only that, but over the last 2 weeks, we've had these incredible low pressure coming in. And for those of you who saw our show with Bruce Hedrick, where we talked about predicting the weather and so forth, all the weather geeks, and I'll admit to being one of them, are just going crazy watching these low pressure. And if you look at the weather map now on the NOAA Ocean Prediction Center, you can see these low pressure systems just marched up like a chain coming across the Pacific Ocean. So we're not done. We're not done with strong winds. And part of our news for tonight is we actually had an exceptional weather event, wind event here in Anacortes. Our power went out, and we had some marine issues, and we had a boat that sunk here, and it was quite amazing because the Landons were right there when it sunk. How is that for being on the spot for,
like a
little
reporting? A little too convenient, maybe?
Maybe a little too convenient. Landon, what can you tell us about this boat that sunk?
The boat that sunk, it sunk actually just barely west of the marina that we're in, which is Anchor Cove here, and that's right next to the Guaymas ferry terminal, ferry dock, right here in Anacortes. So not the Washington State ferry dock, but the one that's right in town. And the boat is right now resting on the bottom, about 150 feet or so west of the Guaymas Island ferry dock. And there's a story about how it got there. The news, the event started with the winds, of course, and the high winds. And it hit Lovericks Marina. And for those of you that haven't been to Lovericks, Lovericks is not your destination marina per se. It's more of a work marina, and very much of a work marina.
God, what a diplomat.
Pretty classical.
It's nice.
I practiced that earlier.
That's very believable.
It's a rough and ready marina. Let's put it that way. And
our lawyers had to approve this language.
Ready. Gritty.
The outside of that, on the north side of the marina, there's about a 500-foot by 50-foot wide floating float out there, concrete float. Looks like a section of a highway or something, but it's pretty big.
It is. It's part of the I-90 bridge before they replaced it, or the 520.
Was that the fine? Okay, I wasn't sure. It looks more like the I-90, but so there's this. It used to be 500 feet long, and so in the windstorm, about half of it was in two sections. So a 250-foot by 50-foot section of it sank and came loose, and there were a couple of boats tied to it. One of them was about little over 100-foot commercial fishing vessel that they were refurbishing, and that one broke loose, and they didn't get a hold of that, and that one drifted with the wind eastward until it hit the breakwater for Anchor Cove Marina, and it sat there for quite a while, pounding up against that until the ebbing current drew it back westward again, and it started pounding up against one of the doll piles and the pier for the Guaymas Island Ferry. That somehow, the speculation is that somehow punctured hull. Anyway, it got enough water in it that it finally capsized, and right there in front of the Guaymas Island Ferry. And then after that, it drifted with the ebb and current and sank in there. The other boat that came loose was the Coast Guard cutter boat that's been sitting at Lovericks for a number of years with a very interesting history about, included a bankruptcy. It was an old Coast Guard vessel that somebody bought and then didn't have the money to take care of it. So it's been sitting at Lovericks for a couple of years. That one broke loose as well, but they got a hold of it, and it's now tied up at Anacortes, right at the downtown Anacortes. And let me see if I can do oops, I just got the wrong, hold on. I was going to share screen.
Let's hope this works better than our opening.
This wind event, while Leonard's setting this up, we're told there were 85 knot winds in Burroughs Bay, which is right where the Landons live. So it was pretty significant here. And
this video is on actually on the KIMA TV website, and it may run an ad or something on it. Yeah, it's loading an ad in there, so we'll see what this does, but it's pretty good. We'll see if we can skip the ad in a second here. But
400,000 people lost power in the Puget Sound area during the course of this storm.
Well, the Landons, as you heard, here comes that video.
So Landons, that's your boat.
That's how rumors get started,
That's
Peter.
right. There it goes.
It's always sad to see a boat that actually gets into that much trouble and sinks.
On the foreground is the marina. To the left is the Guaymas Ferry landing.
Now, we should
from there, it drifted down.
We should add that the boat was under renovations. It did not have any lubricants or fuel on board, so it did not represent a ecological problem. Other than we now got a big boat sitting there just under the water.
Marked by two buoys, so it is marked right now. In fact, we have a picture here, a couple pictures. You can see the ferry landing to the right and just barely make out the orange buoys. And then you have the other one.
So right in here, this is the Guaymas Island Ferry Terminal here. And there's right over in there are a couple of red buoys and that are marking this thing right now. And if I can grab this. Let's see if we can do this.
With the current that flows through there, I wonder how much that boat is moving on the bottom. You know, it could be hundreds of yards.
I think it's bottomed out pretty well, but they've got it marked pretty well right now. So Yeah.
So, Peter, how's that for current newsworthy information? Eyewitness news, we're right there on the spot.
It's that budget. It's that the Grossbeck Realty Group allowing for that budget that we've got, thankfully.
That's right. That's right.
I had a call today, Mark, along those lines. It makes me think of derelict vessels, and there's a phenomenal program out of the Rhode Island Marine Trade Association. So our counterparts in Rhode Island, they are piloting a boat recycling program with, you probably know a thing or two about, given your time with Northwest Maritime Center and Port Townsend, but they,
That's right.
Washington State is poised to be a real leader in boat recycling, especially fiberglass. And we could have him as a future speaker on our Seattle Boat Show Live, Mark, if you'd be so willing.
Yeah, we should definitely do it.
Great topic. We're going to have all this fiberglass laying around. I mean, think about it. Sauna, hot tubs, RVs, pools, boats. So yeah, there's a very exciting program, like I said, coming out of Rhode Island. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Yeah, we'll definitely make that a future show.
Well, good. Did you notice I got my Seattle Boat Show haircut?
I know, and I'm sure your mother is on the chat line telling you how good you look. I was told today that by my significant other that I need to be getting my hair cut before I appear on any of the streaming for the Seattle Boat Show.
It's right around the corner. It's January 28th through 31st. If you don't have your tickets now, you're not too late, but the clock is ticking. So go to seattleboatshow.com and get your tickets. You can get into the show for $5 up to $89, a whole suite of different activities waiting you, including you can win a boat. We're doing a boat building partnership with Northwest Maritime Center where you build a boat and there's a enter to win there. We're giving away there's another raffle ticket for a pink boat to help support the K-Yow Cancer Fund out of North Carolina. So you got $5, you get admission to the show, and you can watch all the live streaming of boating and the fishing seminars taking place. There's another ticket for $20, and where you can rewatch the fishing and boating seminars. And then at the next level, you can attend some of that Boat Show University classes. Mark, why don't you tell me about Boat Show University?
Well, we're busy preparing that. I'll have a class on Boat Show University. The Landons will have a class that they've produced talking about going to Alaska. We have the experts back again. We've got Nigel Calder talking about electrical and diesel mechanics, and Michael Beamer talking about keeping your boat alive and maintenance issues. Bruce Hedrick, former star of our one of our Thursday night shows, he'll be giving a hour and 3/4 weather seminar. Linda Lewis, Margaret Palmer will be in the studio tomorrow, and they'll be recording theirs. And then, so those are the Boat Show University longer courses. And then in addition to that, we have some 85 45-minute courses. So just like the boat show that we have at, I wanted to call it Century Link. I'm not.
Lumen Field, Mark. Lumen Field.
Lumen Field. I'm almost
Event
dialed
center.
into that.
Yes.
Yeah. But every time it pops up for a Seahawks game, which we're now over with, unfortunately, but it catches me to see Lumen Field there. I had to look it up, and I didn't know that Century Link changed their name to Lumen. So I thought
Big
Mr.
news.
Lumen gave a lot of money, and they changed the name of the stadium. But anyway, just like the live boat show, we've got about 85 different free boating and fishing seminars. And these are all listed online with the schedule on seattleboatshow.com. And during the show, in addition to those two streams of seminars, there will be a stream that will be constantly playing with Peter Schrappen and Denise Whitaker, right?
That's right. I'll be there. I believe Denise will be there as well. I know that I've been planning on this one for months now. We've got about 80 guests. We're going to have a trivia game. We're going to have a couple of Hollywood stars from the show Below Deck. I know that's a show that you'd ever miss, Mark, on Bravo.
That's correct.
I've got Boys in the Boat author Daniel Brown. So yeah, really looking forward to. I added a new slot today around best movie. So we've got a couple movie experts. I've got Nancy Pearl, the famous librarian. She'll be talking about books to read while on a boat. So yeah, really, I was out, as you know, I was already bragging about this, but last Thursday with Ethan Stoll cooking up crab. So that will be
Yeah.
we'll be showing that, sharing some of his secrets, and so yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be incredible.
I'm just gonna curl up on the couch with a big bucket of popcorn and be just
You're ready to roll. Yeah, exactly.
constant boating. And at that higher level ticket, I'm beginning to sound like Rick Steves now. At that higher level of tickets, you get the CD-ROM set. No, but we will have all of the seminars available for replay. So if you cannot see them when they're scheduled, they'll be available for you. You can time shift and see them later on for, I think, up to 2 weeks after the show.
I'll double check on that, but also at the highest level, you'll be getting a Boat US basic membership, a Wagoner Cruising Guide. I've heard of that magazine.
Yeah,
Look,
yeah.
excuse me. A ticket to
Worth it
next year's
right
boat
there.
show. Exactly. Ticket to next year's boat show as well. So that's at the $89 level. So yeah, don't miss out. Check out seattleboatshow.com. And Landon, I might have stepped on your lines there. You've got a couple more updates for us.
We do.
Yeah, we have a
Go
few
ahead.
updates. Just quick, as we know, the U.S.-Canada border is still closed through February 21 and most likely will be extended. If you have essential business and you're allowed to go in, you need folks 5 years and older are required to present a negative COVID test, and you still need to quarantine for 14 days. And you may use the ArriveCan app to give all the information that's required. If you are from the lower 48 going to Alaska, you may enter BC to pass through. You need to follow certain guidelines and restrictions.
And it needs to be essential travel.
Essential. Pass through to Alaska.
Yeah.
Yes. And then you can pass through to Alaska. You can stop for fuel or anchor, but you're not to, get off and socialize or go into town or anything like that. So need to remain self-isolated.
Yeah,
And
we're
then-
going to have more information about this pass-through option. A lot of people are asking questions about it, and our guest later on will talk about it with Karl Krueger. Karl, in addition to myself, we lead flotillas to Alaska, and we're hoping to use this pass-through as an option to take our flotillas north. So we're doing more investigation on this. We'll be able to report back on it. So stay tuned.
Right now, as it stands, Alaska is requiring a travel declaration and self-isolation for 14 days, just like Canada. They ask that you submit your plans through their portal, and that's covid19.alaska.gov/travelers. So you need to give your plan, where you're going, where you'll be doing your 14-day isolation. And they too ask that you come with a negative COVID-19 test. You can have it done in Canada, in Alaska, but you will need to wait on your boat until your results come in. So you can have it done ahead of time or after you get there, that you need to isolate.
So options are evolving, and we kind of expect as the vaccines come out, we might see more options, but it's a moving target right now. And I know a lot of people want to pin down their summer plans, and you're going to have to be flexible. And it's going to be an evolving situation.
Well, that just means that gives folks one more reason to watch Seattle Boat Show live every Thursday night.
You ought to ring the bell for that one.
I should mention also, as we learn more, we'll be posting that on our table, wagonerguide.com/updates. So as we learn more, we'll be posting that. So keep that in mind. Go to updates on our website and check what's happening at marinas and what's happening with the border, etc.
I'll put that in the chat. That's great. And Leonard, I will share that what you just sent me for the Alaska COVID updates.
Do we have any more updates or announcements?
The only other one would be a teaser of, we'll report a little more on it. There's in the Hood Canal area, there's going to be a military water drop exercise, several of them in the first half of February, but we'll give you more details. I actually want to make some calls to find out what are they dropping?
I think balloons, big balloons.
People into water. This is something that instead of getting people to avoid it, this is something that I want to go see. But, so we'll get some more information on that later.
I have a development that you can ring the bell on this one. Full disclosure, the Wagner Guide is a sister company with China Sea Ventures in Canada that publishes ports and passes. And we saw a huge increase in sales on ports and passes because the Canadian government this year is no longer printing the Canadian tide and current tables. And so people who want a printed document, ports and passes is the only thing available in the stores. It's forcing us to actually go in and reprint. There's so many of those books being sold right now. So if this is something that is important to you, you may want to grab that book. We might have a little gap before the reprints come in. You can download the Canadian information as a PDF, and you can either keep it electronic or print it out. Probably cost you as much to print it out as it would to buy the ports and passes. But this is a big change, and a lot of people it caught them by surprise, especially our friends in Canada. So a bit of a change over the border, and so yeah, we'll keep you informed on that. So if you do want something printed, grab a ports and passes.
Sounds good, Mark. What do you say we bring in Karl Krueger?
Yeah, Karl.
Come on down.
There's Karl.
There we are.
Karl, a little introduction. I've known of Karl for years due to his sometime cruising and business partner, Jim Rard. And Karl has done some crazy things over the years. And Karl is also a presenter at Seattle Boat Show Connect. And while he was recording his presentation a week and a half ago, I said, Karl, we got to have you on Seattle Boat Show Live, because what you did is absolutely incredible. Karl, I think, is the only person, there may be others, who did the passage from Port Townsend and Victoria on the race to Alaska, all the way to Ketchikan, Alaska, on his paddleboard. And I get the question all the time, how big a boat do I need to go on the cruise up the Inside Passage to Alaska? I know people who've done it in kayaks and all kinds of things, but Karl did it standing up on a paddleboard. Karl, what, 760 miles?
Just about, yeah. So yeah, they build the race as a 750-mile race, and I did it in 766. So yeah, pretty close to the estimate. Yeah.
So Karl, tell us a little bit about your background, because you're not a typical dude here. You get out there, you take people surfing, you take people up to Alaska. I mean, what did you do as a kid? You must have been incredible.
That's all. You know, we could do a whole series on that. I think just that alone. Just the rough sketch up. You know, my father was fourth generation Adirondack guide. You know, he was half Algonquin, steeped in the paddling culture. Definitely a waterman, but also a climber. Got me climbing. You know, canoeing was my first water sport for sure. So it started with that. My mom was from Norway, so she got me skiing when I was just a little thing. You know, in her tradition, you start skiing before you walk. So I don't even remember learning that. And on the paddling side, that was similar. You know, my dad had a paddle in my hands. I don't even remember learning that either. So you know, there's the paddling, the skiing, and then I taught myself how to sail via windsurfing when I was 10, and that took off on me. You know, next thing you know, I'm in lasers and Hobies, and by the time I was in my mid-teens, I was teaching sailing, and and that's just that destroyed my life right there. Just that. And on the climbing side, you know, I got a lot of outdoor training, you know, from my dad for sure. And then I started guiding when I was in my late teens and spent my 20s and jumping between the mountains and the water. And along the way, I've picked up different things. I found my way to surfing when I was in California. I was out there teaching windsurfing and got into surfing. And anyway, that's the rough sketch.
Karl,
I've been messing around. Yeah.
You make me feel like such a slacker. So, how did, my first trip to Alaska was on a converted fishing boat, and
right.
it was pretty luxurious. It was nice, but
right.
With the race to Alaska, a light bulb must have gone on with you, where you said, "This sounds really cool." And rather than do it by a sailboat, which you're perfectly capable of doing, what was the thinking in your head? And tell me what happened to your applications when you applied to telling the Maritime Center that you're going to do this on a paddle.
Yeah. Did people try to talk you out of it?
Lots of people. Yeah. That's a whole conversation, just that alone. To answer your first question, Mark, the thought process went something like, I'm a sailor. Yes. I was a paddler first. Obviously there's not, you can't enter with a power boat, right? So it was going to be a sailboat or something human driven. And, and looking at the course and knowing what I know about the Inside Passage, it dawned on me that, sailing has developed in lots of places around the world where wind was a reliable resource, right? Where you could raise a sail and push a vessel somewhere. In June, on this coast, not so much. You never know what you're going to get. And we've had the indigenous peoples all along this coast putting blades in the water for millennia because it was the most reliable resource, human effort, right? Like sticking that blade in the water. So there was that, and then there was just the fact that personally, I really enjoy having those moments of solitude and just me and whatever activity it is I'm doing without a lot of people around, and just to have that solo time. There's a connectivity with nature piece that's really important to me. And then it was just simply the test of doing something myself. It's one thing to do a race like that with 3 or 4 people around, supporting you all the time. And it's quite another to go out and do it yourself. And so, actually, I can't even claim the idea as my own. I was talking about all these concepts, and my wife at the time, Jess, it was actually her idea. She said, why don't you paddle it? You should paddle this race. And as soon as she said it, I knew she was right. It clicked for me. And I knew I could do it right from day one. And to answer your next question, a lot of people tried to talk me out of it. There are definitely different groups of people. There was a small group of people who are close to me and know me well that were totally supportive from day one. And then most other people fell into the camp of you're nuts and you're going to hurt yourself. And this is insane. I mean, just a couple of days before the race, even, I was out there on the lawn in front of the Maritime Center in Port Townsend. And I had people that I didn't know, I'd never even met, coming up to me and saying, you're insane. You're going to kill yourself, and, it could do things to your head, if you let it, but I just ignored those people completely and went ahead anyway. I knew I could do it.
And what happened to your application when you sent it into the Maritime Center?
It took a long time. So, they like to say that they've only got 2 rules in the race, but they actually, when Jake and Daniel, went public with this, and the Maritime Center behind them, one of the things they agreed between them is no stand-up paddleboarders. So up comes my application, and they vet me hard. I think it was 4 or 5 different phone conversations with Daniel, and he'd go back to Jake, I'm sure, and they talk about it and stew about it. And then Daniel kept coming back with very pointy questions about how I would handle certain scenarios. He'd come up with, scenarios and ask me, for example, Johnstone Strait, what will you do in Johnstone Strait if you're out paddling and you're tired and cold and hungry and wet and bummed out, and the northwesterly fills in and you just can't go upwind, And I remember telling him, well, I'll just turn and go downwind and have the ride of my life and put in someplace safe and wait till it turns my way. It's easy. And it was that conversation where, he went back and talked to everybody, and I was let in. So.
Well, that's great. I mean, when I heard we had a paddleboarder I thought, well, this guy will make it from Port Townsend to Victoria and then have his head examined, and that'll be the end of it. But no, you kept going. And I gotta ask, what was it like? I mean, I know the first time in a boat, power boat, when I crossed Cape Caution, I was paying attention. The graveyard of the Pacific. What was it like for you?
Well, yeah, there's a few things I want to say about everything you just said right there. So for me, like some of the things that came together for me to think that a stand-up paddleboard was the way to go is the fact that, you know, I grew up in canoes. You know, we hunted from canoes. You know, we would go hunting in the Adirondacks of upstate New York where I grew up, and we'd shoot deer and put them in the canoe and take them home and, you know, dress them out and everything. Spent a lot of time in canoes, lots of different sea states. You know, I paddled all around Nova Scotia when I was a little guy. But there's something really special about stand-up paddleboards. It's a non-displacement vessel, which can take a load, can attain full plane, and with a good paddler standing on deck, you know, I can, you know, on some of the longer days up there, I was averaging 5.5, 6 knots just with a maintenance stroke. You know, show me a kayak or a canoe that can do that. And so, you know, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this race this way is because I wanted to win it. You know, I mean, I think in the right year, I you know, if I had gotten just that right set of conditions, I think I could have won it. You know, wow. I finished 12 minutes behind a trimaran with 2 guys on board from France that came in to do that race. 12 minutes after 766 miles. You know what I mean? And that sort of finish, and beyond that first day you mentioned from Port Townsend across to Port Townsend, that second year we came in 7th place paddling across that first day out of the entire fleet. You know, there were 17 or 18 teams that DNF'd that day. I mean, these are larger vessels with sails that DNF'd. You know, that this big storm came down the straits and half the fleet ended up over on Lopez and, you know, around the corner. Didn't even make it to Victoria that day, you know. And so in my mind, you know, and doing the math on this coast and knowing my capabilities and knowing what could happen along the coast, I saw the SUP as a way to win, you know. And what a cool thing, you know. And I'm still think in a lot of ways I did win the race, but you know, that's just me.
Lorena,
anyway,
Lorena wants to get here with a question.
Karl, I have to ask you, I know you're not allowed to have support boats or people bring you supplies. How did you plan for your carrying and having your supplies?
Yeah, so that I carried everything from day one. So, you know, again, knowing this coast and knowing what's available and all the little stops along the way, and also as a way to make sure that I had that full slate of options. You know, I didn't want to get myself into a situation where I had conditions, say, to go out into Hecate, but I had to go in, you know, to Shearwater somewhere to get supplies. I wanted to have everything with me that I needed for the whole trip, so that I didn't have to go anywhere except for the checkpoints. And so I carried everything from day one. And
how? Did you have compartments
on
your board?
You know, if you like, yeah, let's do, so there's not compartments in the board. I'm not sure how to do that. Share, oh, here it is. Let me see if I can share a screen with you guys. I've got some photos. Yeah, I'll work on that. Anyway, so I had bags developed and that mounted on top of my board, and my entire kit, food and everything with all my gear was under 40 pounds. And I don't know if my share is working here. I'll work on that with you guys. So the only thing that I had to procure along the way was water. And I was able to filter water from streams and trickles and wet spots on the rocks and, you know, whatever I found along the way. And to answer your question, Mark, rounding Cape Caution, I had 1.5 head, so 6 to 9 foot swells there on Cape Caution that day. It was lively.
Wow.
Beth Carpenter has a question I've been wondering too. How did you sleep? Where did you sleep? Was your sleep setup? Did you sleep, I guess?
I did sleep. Yeah. So my goal, that all relates back to, you know, what my goals were for the day. And every day my goal was 50 nautical miles per day. and when I hit 50, then I would start thinking about where I was going to pull up for the night. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, we have your picture now.
Okay, good. And then I'll clean this up a little bit. So this will answer a few questions for you.
So the race to Alaska, that's going to also, I was going to mention really quick, Carl, that we're going to try to show that during the Seattle Boat Show Connected.
Oh,
As
great.
part of, once you buy that $5 ticket. So not only will there be 200 exhibitors and 6,000 photos that you can view right now, but you can also get in and watch the documentary that features you, Carl. That's where I first met you.
Well, I'm in there. Yeah, for sure. And that also relates to the next project, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But anyway, here's the board. This is just a couple of days before the race started in Port Townsend. Here, I'm closing in on Nanaimo here. And that's all my stuff. That's everything right there on the board, water included. And then, so this is an interesting thing to look at. So this is this is the first day out of Victoria. And I was in first place for most of the day. The entire fleet was behind me. I had gotten all the way up into the Gulf Islands before the first boat caught up to me, and it was a trimaran. Pear-shaped racing finally caught me. And anyway, so there's the stats right there, and the stupid computer only goes up to 10 hours. So that bottom time there is 10 hours and 22 minutes and covered 48 nautical miles. And my max speed that day was almost 9 knots. That was my camp. This is just south of Campbell River, and that, there I am on the beach. And so there's a photo here in a few moments of my tent. But if the weather looked dry, I would just sleep on the sand with my little bivy sack. This is Johnstone Strait. I actually got really lucky in Johnstone, and there was a southeast gale forecast, and so the whole way across up the northern straits, and and into to get to Campbell River and into Johnstone, I was just gunning to make this southeast gale because I wanted to take advantage of that favorably wind. And this is just north of Cape Caution. This was my camp setup. That's my little tent. It's a mountaineering tent. It has no floor, so it's very, very light. And it just has a single pole in the middle. So it's very quick and easy to set up. And that's all my stuff there drying out because the trip up Johnstone was a wet one.
Are you just exhausted when you hit the sack? I mean, just ready
so the answer is yes. This day especially. So I was I had an opening to get around Cape Caution, and so the whole way along this coast, I mean, my chief strategy, just like doing it in a larger boat, was to match the abilities of my vessel, which obviously included me in this trip, with the systems that are coming in. So it's like a cog it's like meshing cogs, and so I was trying to match my speed with the systems that were coming in so that I was set up for hurdles like Johnstone, and I would have have it more favorably, because my goal was to not ever stop. I wanted to get somewhere every single day. And so I never paddled. I think the shortest day I did was 26 miles. The longest was 72. And my average was about 50 as a result. So yes, I was exhausted. This day, I had to make Cape Caution because there's another system coming in that was going to give a strong northwesterly, and I had no desire to paddle against that. So after that southeast gale, I had 1 day to get around Cape Caution. And so
what was your complete leg there, Carl? You left from, I think, Alert Bay, right?
I did. Yeah, I departed Alert Bay at 3 a.m. and I went directly to Cape Caution. I paddled straight across the straits there, and then rounded the Cape and put in here on this little beach just north of Cape Caution for a total of 72 nautical that day. And yes, I was tired. I gunned it all day long. My average that day was about 5.5 knots. And that's fully loaded. I mean, and I carried, a lot, more water than I thought I would need, just in case I got pinned and I had to spend a day or two on a rock out there. And so I had, I think, 6 or 8 liters of water with me so that I could, so I had some time in the bank there. And it was the most wonderful camp spot, this beautiful beach, some of the most extensive kelp forests I've ever seen. And then there's this mountain lion tracks all over the beach, so somebody was in the neighborhood that day. And then this was my program to keep my hands from falling apart. By the end of the race, I was in fine shape and I didn't need to use any tape at all.
And Karl, how did you stay warm? What gear did you have on your body?
Yeah, so most days, most days I was dressed like you saw in that first photo. I would wear just a pair of 3/4 length or full length tights, and then like a rash guard top. And depending on the conditions, I might, like if it was raining a lot, I would just put on a really lightweight shell gear. I had very lightweight Helly Hansen shell gear that I would put over just those same items. I didn't ever wear anything different. I didn't want to add weight by carrying a lot of different options. So that was all I carried for my body when I was paddling. And if I got cold, I just paddled harder, literally. And for days where I was most committed, like Johnstone, that was a big, heavy day. I carried a 2 mil wetsuit. If I felt like it was probable, I would go in the water or spend any time there. And so that day in Johnstone during that gale, I wore my 2 mil wetsuit to the waist, with my yellow jacket there on top. And then I had a little tiny dry bag. I didn't bring a sleeping bag, but I had a dry bag with a down jacket and a puffy pair of pants. And I guarded those with my life. That was the one dry thing that I had on that board. And so I would wait until my tent was up, and then I would peel out of my wet stuff and put the dry things on. And that was a little bit of heaven for the night. And then I would have to put the wet stuff back on in the morning.
Were you ever like, what am I doing? I just want to go home and curl up and chill out? Or did you ever have any of those moments?
There was never a moment like that, actually. I'm not ever going to say that it's difficult. It's weird to talk about, because ultimately and in retrospect, when I think back on it, it was easy because I was having fun. I've talked a lot with people about, endurance sports and what that means, like what wiring you have to have, and like what training mentally and physically you have to do this sort of thing and enjoy yourself. And at the very heart of it all, it's not endurance if you love what you're doing. And I personally love paddling, and I love connecting at that deeper level. And like I clicked into a flow state just south of Campbell River that was deeper than any I've ever had. And I was in it until a while past actually getting to Ketchikan. And it didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter how hard I paddled. I was in this place where it just didn't matter what happened. It was okay. I was fine. I was out in Dixon Entrance with, gale after gale after gale blowing through. These little squalls were blowing through all day long, and there were, times where, it's just nuking 35 knots and big waves and rain, and then it would shut off and I'd be stuck in this bathtub for another hour, and then another one would blow through, and it was just fine, because I knew that at some point in the future that would stop and it would be okay again, and so you just have to adopt this mindset of this will pass. Even the good times, you have to know that it's going to get crappy again, maybe, and you'll get through that too. You click into this flow of just accepting what is, and don't worry about it too much. You just keep doing it. You just keep doing what you're there to do. And just, I would focus on those things that make me happy, like the sound of my blade going in the water and the sound of the ravens on shore checking in on me, because they followed me the whole way. And, the smells, and, hey, there's another whale over there. I would focus on all those things, and pretty soon all the hard things, all those things that you would think would break you, just disappear, and they don't matter at all. They just go away.
Karl, what did you have for nutrition? I know when I've done long distance cycling, I've used gels, and that's worked out very well. Did you have something like that or something else?
Yeah, one of my ongoing sponsors is Hammer Nutrition in Montana, and they've been creating rocket fuels for endurance athletes for 20, 30 years now. And I recognized early on that if I was going to keep my weight down, I needed to commit to rocket fuel. I simply just didn't have the space to carry food. And so I went to Hammer and I said, here's what I'm about to do. set me up. How are we going to do this? And so they have a product called Perpetuum Solids, and they're these tablets basically that are about the diameter of a bottle cap and about twice as thick, and they're just loaded with just the right ratio of protein and carbs and fats in there, plus micronutrients and electrolyte replacements. And at my age, there's an algorithm, so like at my age and weight and body type and BMI and all that, it's 4 of those per hour. So about every 15 minutes, you eat one of those, wash it down with a little water, which also had electrolyte replacement in it. If I felt my pilot light flickering a little bit, I'd hit some gel, and that was all I ate all day. That was it. So because when you're at that level of output, your body actually can't absorb any more calories than that anyway. So it's just a waste. And so all you're trying to do is maintain your muscles' ability to just keep going. And so that's how I handle that all day. And then at night, they have a product called Recoverite, which is just it's an infusion of glycogen and again, electrolytes and carbs and protein and fats. And so I would take 2 of those shakes and then a protein shake and maybe a couple of bars, and then 1 cup of miso per night. That was what I allowed for just a little bit of heaven. So I had a cup of coffee in the morning, and then that miso at the night. Those are my 2 hot moments, and then I would sleep. And so, I would gun for that 50 miles. And when I put in, I would do all my busy work, like filling my water containers and get my tent set up, obviously, and all of that. And then I would pitch my tent, I'd crawl in there and I would change into my dry stuff, and I would eat, do the shakes and all of that, have my miso and sleep for 4 hours, and then get up and do it all over again. So that was my day. And
so you would get up in your sleep to take more nutrition then?
No, I only ended up usually with about 4 to 5 hours of time to sleep, and that's what I did. And then I would get up and then literally just start paddling and eating tablets again, the Perpetuum Solids. So that's all I carried. So each day I had vacuum bags, each day's allowance of Perpetuums, and I did the math, 4 per hour, 50 nautical miles is, figured that out, how many tablets per day I would eat. And then I had 2 bars too, which were pretty yummy, Hammer Nutrition bars. So if I felt like I was running too lean, I would just eat one of those too. And that was it. That was all my food for the whole thing. So every day, that was part of what I would do. I had these little vials that were in my chest pack where my Camelback water bag was. And I would refill all those little vials, and I had them. It was just very organized. Like I would refill those vials, and when the ones in my pack were empty, I would just reach down and swap them out with some 2 fresh ones that were down there in my bag on the deck. And and I kept my Camelback full, and it was basically 2 liters of water per 20 miles was about what I was doing for water. And that was with electrolytes in it. Without electrolytes, it was more like 15 miles or 10 miles, and then I would start cramping. So it was really key to have that electrolyte in there, just to keep the whole machine running.
So did you gain weight or lose weight as a result?
I lost 15 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's about a pound a day. And I recognized that early on too. I knew there was, there's a limit to how long you can do that, so it's a race against weight loss. Yeah, I worked really hard to gain weight before the race, muscle mass, but it just melted away. I lost quite a bit of weight.
That's quite a diet routine. I'm not sure I would recommend it to do anything.
I thought I'd heard of all the diets out there.
But what was interesting about it is even though I lost weight, physically I was just as strong, if not stronger, by the end. Like those 50 miles per day, they started just really not seeming like that big of a deal. After 3 or 4 days of that, it got much easier to paddle those miles, physically and mentally. So in a way, yeah, I lost muscle mass and weight and all that, but I was actually doing better by the end, physically, than I was in the beginning.
Interesting. Well, what would you say was your highlight along the trip? Did you have a whale encounter or bear encounter or?
So many, and Mark, I mean, it was, I had so many encounters. You know, there's that bear a couple of slides ago, you know, I was paddling along, and there's a, you know, when I got to Ivory Island there's a strong inflow. It had been raining and just crappy. And the second of those systems after Cape Caution came in, and it was just nuking it right there by Ivory Island. And my dream had been to go on the outside. Like what I wanted to do was cut across Fitzhugh there and go up and skirt Hecate and cross Dixon Entrance at the north end of that, because it's more direct, fewer miles. You know, the currents are less along that route, and it's just beautiful out there anyway. So that's the way I wanted to go. But then when I got there by Ivory Island, it was just nuking, and the sea state was huge. And so I ended up jotting north. There's this series of old canoe channels, actually, that I was shown by a Heltzig man on the chart, just right north of Ivory Island there. There's a series of channels. And then I came through, I'm blanking on the pass right now, but anyway, it comes out it runs roughly east-west right by Klemtu there, and ended up there. But anyway, I was paddling through those channels, and they're just gorgeous. You know, within half an hour, I went from this monster sea state, could barely make headway, and I duck into these channels, and you could hear the water dripping off the trees. You know, it was like what was happening just a mile behind me wasn't even occurring. You know, it was a different world in there. And I woke this bear up on my way by, and we had a little chat while I had a little snack. That was pretty amazing. But I saw whales every single day. You know, I had ravens at every single camp that were really interested in me and came and checked me out. This is Dixon Entrance right here, which ended up being my second longest day. I paddled across that in one shot. Here, I think, yeah, here's the next slide. So here's my day. And so when at the end of the day, this is the same readout, but on the left, it shows the middle number. There's the max speed. And on the right portion there, it shows the average speed of that run. So almost 60 miles. And you know, it was 14 hours and 20 minutes of paddling right there. So you add 10 to that bottom number, 10 hours. Just an absolute street fight of a day. I mean, that, you know, I would go from, you know, 5 or 6 knots down the face of a wave to, you know, and I'd slam into the next wave and hit 0, you know, and like there's no rhyme or reason or flow to it. It's such a bathtub. And I went east of Dundas Island, which we all know gets pretty lumpy in there. And I paid dearly for those miles that day. But then what was amazing is, you know, I struggled through that, and I passed a boat there. I passed another racer, a sailboat, passed them and never saw them again. At the end of the day, you know, I made that turn, you know, over towards Ketchikan there, around the northeast tip of Dundas.
Right.
Within half an hour there, it glassed off, and it was the most beautiful sunset. So I hadn't eaten all day because I couldn't, you know, I was working so hard to just stay on the board and keep the thing moving. I fell off my routine of the tablets even. I just couldn't get to it because I was working so hard. But I round Dundas, you know, and I was on the border with Alaska on my knees eating, and it was just like glass, and watching the sun go down, and realizing that I was just about to finish the last big hurdle to making it to Ketchikan. And I have to say, I was kind of surprised by the fact that I wasn't at all happy about that.
Yeah.
Did you fall off your board on the trip, Karl?
Not a single time.
Wow.
Karl, what was
Not
it
even
like
once.
getting to that finish line? I mean, I know my wimpy way of doing it is in a power boat. And when I see the horizon line, usually of the cruise ships coming to Ketchikan, I feel like it's a big accomplishment. But I can't imagine what it feels like when you're boarding up to, to Thomas Basin.
Yeah, that. I'm glad you can't see my face right now because I'll probably get all choked up about it. You know, some friends of mine that had raced the year prior told me that they're like, you know, Karl, when you make it there, just give yourself a few minutes outside the breakwater and pull it together because you're going to lose it. Fortunately for me, that happened way earlier. It took a long time for me to realize. So I'll go back. So what is that? Cape Fox there is where I slept the night before, that's where I crossed, and I slept there in Cape Fox. And I'd only been paddling an hour, and my plan was just to sort of cruise, I was just going to slide into Ketchikan whenever I got there, and I wasn't going to worry about my speed that day, and all the difficulties were over. And, I just wanted to settle into the fact that I was almost done and just inhabit that space happily, and I look west, and what do I see but a little sail? And an hour and a half later, there's this trimaran coming by, and it was one of the racers. I can't remember the name of the team right now, but anyway, it was on, there's no way I was going to just let them sail away without a fight. So it was a race, that last day was a race, and it was really light air that day. There was a little bit of sea state early on. There was a little bit of swell coming in Dixon Entrance there. But I gunned it for Ketchikan that day, and I desperately wanted to beat that boat. And you have to understand too that I hadn't looked at my phone. I wasn't looking at the tracker. I checked out of social media. I just didn't care about any of that. Like, I was just running my own race, and to see a boat that wanted to pass me is a race. I was there to win, just like everybody else. And anyway, I paddled my heart out that day, and I would catch them, and then they'd catch a little breeze and get ahead, and it was just like leapfrog all day long. And in the end, you must
have been driving them crazy.
Oh yeah. When they came up and sailed up to me, like, they were super friendly and happy and all of that. But again, there were these two French guys that I'll never forget as long as I live. They rolled up the jib and sailed past me really slow. And the one of them, the one guy was standing out on the bow of one of the Amas. It was just like, it cannot be. It is a mirage. It's impossible, It just, and I couldn't tell if he was happy to see me or not, but it blew their minds. It blew their minds, and mine too a little bit, I guess. But I just wanted to get there first. That's all I wanted. And so anyway, so I came paddling in, and this photo, I gleaned it off the internet after the finish, and it was taken by, that's why it's so grainy. It was taken by somebody on land, obviously. And to answer your question, Mark, going into the dock was hard, but this stretch right here was harder. It was, I wasn't, I've never been used to that kind of attention, and to see, there are cars along the road and people waving flags and honking horns and stuff. And it just blew my mind that anybody gave a shit about what I just did. Sorry, I swore, but I wasn't ready for that, at all. And it was like that the whole way into Ketchikan. People are waving, and it just, I didn't realize that it would touch anyone, and then I got to the finish line, and
so this is where I think that they should have given you your own set of steak knives, or at least one steak knife. And for those of you who don't know, first place is what, $10,000, right?
Correct.
Yes, $10,000. Yep.
And then second place is a set of steak knives. And it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke, but when somebody like Karl does this by paddleboard, he should have at least gotten one steak knife.
Well, what really highlights all of this are just the stats, right? I think it was 54 boats started the race that year from Port Townsend. I'm pretty sure it was 54. 27 boats. So it's about a 50% attrition rate. Only about half the boats that leave Port Townsend make it to Ketchikan. And of the 27 boats that made it to Ketchikan, I came in 17th in 2 weeks. I still, there, in a lot of ways, I don't even understand it, but it was a decidedly a life-changing event.
So for those of you, to put this into perspective, Karl leads a flotilla group, I lead a flotilla group, and I normally, with 10 power boats, take a little over 2 weeks to get from Anacortes to Ketchikan. And we have some ups and downs moments, nothing like what Karl has. But like I said earlier, I feel like such a wimp that here we do it in a power boat, and you do it with this incredible.
Your KitchenAid mixer, your ice maker, Mark, all of them,
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
creature comforts. Yeah.
Oh, hell, I make cheesecakes on the way, things like that.
So Carl, I have a couple of questions for you. Some real basic stuff about what about navigation, and what about weather? Where did you get weather? And then did you ever have navigation? Did you ever have a spot where you kind of went, oh man, is it this channel to the right or this to the left? And how did you figure this out?
What I used, I had an iPad, and at the time I was using iNavX on it. Now I'm using Time Zero on my iPad, but that's what I brought with me. And what I would do, at night over my cup of miso, I would look that over. And here's a funny little story. So I had a little solar panel with an auxiliary battery on it, just a little power pack that I could USB charge my headlamp, my iPad, and my phone, and the little GoPro that was mounted on the board and all that. And I had also a USB rechargeable VHF radio. And that VHF radio died dead as a post, not just battery dead, but the thing stopped working about Cape Caution. So for more than half the trip, I didn't even have a VHF, which in moments like crossing Dixon Entrance, where there's tug and tows and ferries and all kinds of big, heavy stuff going on, I didn't have a way to contact them and, make sure they didn't run me over. So that added a whole wrinkle to everything. So for most of the trip, I did not have that VHF to listen to the weather radio. That's what I was using until Cape Caution. And then after Cape Caution, what I tried to do, with going through Bella Bella and Shearwater, I was able to use my phone. There's enough cell service there that I could look at the forecast for the next few days. And then later on, for my Dixon Entrance crossing, I was able to get just enough cell service where I was before I made the crossing off at Prince Rupert. I didn't go into Prince Rupert, I bypassed it, but I was able to get enough cell service to look at weather conditions there, which turned out to be totally wrong. False. And so anyway, that was my program. So at night, I would sit down, and with what I knew about the weather and my barometer and, having a look at the clouds and just seeing what's going on, I would make a plan for what I would do the next day. And it was only a rare thing that during the day I would pull out my iPad to see, just make sure I was doing the right thing. There was a couple of days I was in fog, and I had the iPad just right out where I could see it, just to make sure I was doing the right thing. But no, there was never a moment where I felt lost or didn't know where I was going. I had a pretty good sense of what was going on.
And Carl, you've done the Inside Passage how many times now?
Oh,
roughly?
Man. Roughly, I haven't, I should sit down and count them, but with deliveries and all, shy of 30.
Yeah. And
So,
I want to promote that you lead the flotillas, the Sail Alaska program every year. And the thing that I give you and Jim Rard incredible credit for is how on one of your flotillas, you guys created a pizza oven on the beach using rocks and cooked a pizza on the hot rocks.
Exactly. That's proprietary information. I can't show you a picture, but that's a fact. Yeah. Pizza oven was built, and there was just a perfect stone laying on the beach, and so we just built it up onto a little fire pit, kind of fireplace with the rocks that were there, kind of these flat rocks, and just built that with the fire right under it, and made really good bread too, right on there. And then we smoke fish on the beach too. We'll build little smoker setups and smoke fish, and we spend quite a lot of time on shore doing things like that.
And my flotilla runs just under 3 weeks. Yours, though, you take people up into Southeast Alaska, and I think you run about 5 weeks, don't you?
Yeah, 5 to 8 is where we're at. Generally, how it goes, because it's an educational trip too. I could skip forward through a few slides here and show you. That's the next project for paddling. So Sail Alaska, that's my business, Krueger Escapes. I run charters on the sailing vessel Ocean Watch. That's Jim and I on Ruby Slippers. That's Ocean Watch. That's the boat I'm on right now, and the vessel I run for charters up and down the coast. And so, yeah, it's all about fishing and the whale watching, right? Hot spring viewing. That's Ocean Watch under sail. So yeah, that's a few. So it's an educational trip, so a lot of time, our clientele in Sail Alaska are people that have bought the boat, have strong desire to go sailing and cruising, don't know the coast very well. And so, we guide them along, so we'll help them, learn their systems on their boat, talk about weather patterns and navigation, decision-making processes, and just generally have a good time doing it, so we'll guide them through all of that. And so the deal is, we'll lead them all up through British Columbia, up into Alaska. A lot of times we'll visit Tracy Arm, we'll go to Annan Creek. There's a few places we like to go. And then we work our way back to Ketchikan, and then everyone's free to filter their way down the coast on their own. So the trip sort of breaks up there and everyone goes off on their own. And then Jim or I, we will be running 2 trips per season now. So Jim will be leading one and I'll lead the other. And we'll hang back a week or so and just let people get ahead, and then filter down behind just in case, anybody needs a hand as we're coming down the coast. We can go help people out.
Sue Peterson says, hi, Carl. She crashed your potluck dinner with your group at the park cabin one year in 2019 on her Nordic tug spinner.
Yeah, it happens a lot. Yeah.
What's next for Karl Krueger?
Yeah, you teased us with that one slide, Carl. I know what it is. I'm not sure you want to disclose it to the public.
I do. Yeah. Well, once you talk about a thing, it's real, right? And it took me a while to, I'll give you a little background before I go back to that slide. So there I was, it's one of those stories, there I was, and I was just off at Dundas Island. I'd been brawling all day long. And I was looking at the Alaskan border, and I was almost done. And I was crushed by that fact. I was having the time of my life, and I had no desire to be done. And so the wheels in the back of my mind started thinking about, what can I do next that I can attain this depth of connectivity and flow state and be in my element for longer, and do something else that hasn't been done. I mean, that's one of the driving factors in doing this thing, is that it hadn't been done before. I've got enough climber in me that I enjoy doing first ascents, or I did when I was younger, doing, when I was a climber. Ticking off first ascents is a big deal. If you can hang your hat, hang your name on something that hasn't been done before, especially if it's at a high level, you've done something, right? Like you've done something. And for me, in doing the race to Alaska, I wanted to take the sport of stand-up paddleboarding and raise the bar a bit. I wanted to just, what I saw in stand-up paddleboarding was the potential to develop it as not just a viable, but a powerful platform for long distance paddling. I mean, it's very fast. It's fun. You have all these different body positions that you can slip into to give your body a break, as opposed to other means of paddling like rowing, where you're stuck on your butt. I mean, you talk to Mathieu Bonnier, who did, he's obviously French. He rode it. I mean, lots of people have rode this race, and there's a price to pay. I mean, there's nerve damage that can be done in your lower back, your butt's killing you, and there aren't very many things you can do to shake up your stance. Where with stand-up paddling, there's a lot of stuff you can do. And that just plays into what a powerful platform it is to cover a lot of miles quickly and enjoyably. And so anyway, there I am out in the Dixon entrance, and I'm thinking about all of these things and realizing that I just set the bar pretty damn high for stand-up paddling and long distance paddling. And I was immediately hungry for more. For me, it's always been this logical progression of things, right? So like, people ask me all the time if I want to do R2AK again, and the answer is no. I did that. I did that thing, and now I'd like to move along and do something more important to me. And to me, I want to stay in that flow state longer. I'd like to do something that hasn't been done. And on top of that, I'd like to raise awareness. I'd like to add my voice to that chorus of voices talking about the severity of the climate change crisis that we are in. And so that next project is this one. We are looking at a screenshot of the Northwest Passage. This is above the Arctic Circle, and my starting point is going to be Tuktoyaktuk there in the west, and I will start paddling in early July, and I'm hoping by September sometime I'll paddle into Pond Inlet there in the east on Baffin Island. It's about 2,000 miles worth of paddling and a completely different problem set from Race to Alaska.
Yeah, there's polar bears when you overnight it there.
There are, yeah, there are polar bears, and there's ice, and it's just a vast place. I was up in Tuktoyaktuk the summer of 2019. I went up there. That's where this picture was taken, actually. So that board I had custom built by Joe Bark down in California. He's the shaper of the board that I use for Race to Alaska as well. And we built this board custom for paddling the Northwest Passage with a lot of the things that I learned along the way on that race. This is the next project.
Wow. And when do you hope to do this?
Last summer. Yeah. We can just do stop share so I can go back on. I'm trying to get my computer work here. I'll come back on for you. There we go. Yes. So yeah, I was hoping for last year. 2020 happens. With COVID restrictions. Northwest Territories and Nunavut both actually closed their borders before the border with Canada and the U.S. closed. So even if the border with Canada opens, it's likely that those internal borders will remain closed. So I don't see it happening in 2021, so probably the year after.
James is wondering, Karl, if you've ever thought about writing a book, or maybe you are writing a book right now?
I've got to do something important first.
Yeah, something remarkable.
Oh. Well,
I will. Yeah, that is on the table. There's actually a book deal waiting for the day when I paddle into Pond Inlet, and I think by then I'll have something to talk about. The Race to Alaska was, generally speaking, a proof of concept for me, and this Northwest Passage trip, it's the real thing. All of a sudden, that's the real thing.
Karl, where can people follow you? You've got a website. Are you active on social media?
Yeah. I've fortunately gotten some help lately with social media, so I'm a little bit more present there. I have a personal website. It's just karlkruegerofficial.com, and on there's a link to pretty much everything I'm into. With Krueger Escapes, with my sailing charters on sailing vessel Ocean Watch, and there's also a link to Project Ocean Watch. I don't know if anybody remembers, but Ocean Watch was the vessel that circumnavigated both North and South America under the captainship of Mark Schrader about 10 years ago as a science expedition and outreach all the way around both Americas. And that was called Around the Americas. And so I partnered my company with Mark, bought Ocean Watch, and committed myself to running the next expedition around the Americas. And so there's a link to that website from my website, and also a link to Krueger Escapes itself. Yeah.
Well, great. Put that in the chat for everybody.
And then also,
Karl, this has been fantastic and incredibly interesting. I want to tell you that you now hold the record for Seattle Boat Show Live for the guest who went the most over our time slot. And it kept all of our attention.
I think Karl's probably broken a lot of records in his life.
Yeah, he can add that one.
Actually, that's not true. People say that a lot about breaking records, but it's different than that. And this is where I start to sound like I'm stroking myself, but I like to set records. I don't like breaking them.
Okay. Good.
When was the last time you watched television, Karl?
I don't.
That's what I figured. I knew you were going to say that.
I don't watch TV. Yeah, I don't have time for that.
Well, except for Seattle Boat Show Live.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Every Thursday night, 7.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Karl, I can't thank you enough. And just to plug, Karl is going to be part of the Seattle Boat Show. Karl, I should have it, but when is your presentation? I know it's online. Anybody can look it up. But...
Oh yeah, that's right. Like, which presentation? You know, I don't remember it off the top of my head. I know it's on the schedule. It's just a short one. I think about half an hour long. Yeah.
And what are you covering there? Can you tease us?
It's similar about tonight. You know,
Uh-huh.
I was just asked to talk about the Inside Passage by Sup and Sail, and it's obviously a topic near and dear to my heart. I love this coast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I got a preview of the presentation because I was there when Karl recorded it, and it's worth tuning in for it. And it's free, which is available on which of the tickets, Peter?
I've got it right here. Thanks for asking. It's for the $5 ticket. You can see the all live streaming boating and fishing seminars for the $5. Yep.
Yeah. So look up Karl's presentation, and
I'd like to have you on my show too, Karl. We'll talk about that later.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
It was nice
So
meeting
Karl,
you all. Thanks so much.
thank you again. Thank you, Landons, for that
Yeah.
on-the-spot reporting. Hopefully, we won't have to have that too often where you go out and risk life and limb to cover the sinking of a boat at your marina or outside of your marina. And hopefully, but I would say we're going to have some more weather and wind events coming up over the next week.
Karl, where are you right now? Are you in Bellingham?
No, we are anchored on Ocean Watch. We're in Blind Bay here on Shaw Island, right across from the Orcas Ferry Landing.
Got it.
Nice.
This is
Nice.
this is where we were. We were right here for that blow the other night, and we slept great. It was fun.
Well, you probably
Well,
got
you've got a
like
good
6
boat.
hours of sleep. You can probably sleep in a little bit.
Yeah, it was great.
All right, Peter,
We
you want
only-
to wrap it up?
Yeah. Well, what a pleasure, Karl. You've really got me inspired. Thank you so much for being a part of Seattle Boat Show Live, episode 31. Dick Cavett, Mark, hosted Saturday Night Live's episode 31 of Fry Cooter. Dick Cavett, I learned a little bit about him from Nebraska, battled depression, one of the first people to write about his battle of depression, and still going strong. He's 80-something years old.
I have stories. I actually have the distinction of having directed Dick Cavett for
I'd love
a little episode for a corporate presentation for Minolta Business Equipment many years ago, and we had a quite a day and night. And I have some Dick Cavett stories I'll share sometime.
I'll
Great
send you
guy.
a podcast interview. I just listened to him talking about his time with Johnny Carson, so I'll send that your way, Mark.
Well, it's nothing like my time with him.
Yeah, he didn't mention Mark Benzel during that interview. They must have
No, he
edited
didn't.
that out.
didn't.
That was the
But,
darndest thing. Well, we look
we
forward to
had a
seeing
lot of fun.
we look forward to seeing everyone next Thursday night. In the meantime, get your SeattleBoatShow.com tickets. Pick up your new Wagoner Cruising Guide edition,
Oh, you
freshly
still have it.
minted. I
All
got
right.
that. It was a great episode tonight. I thought my mom likes my haircut, so there, a win-win-win across the board. Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night, everybody. And Karl, I'll send you a Wagner guide here.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll send you some
All right.
stickers. Yeah.
Yeah, some stickers. Great. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.